Hello, BookTube. I've had a bit of a trying day, a wearing day. I filmed a book haul to perk up my spirits, and it did. So I thought, if a little is good, a little more will be better. So this worked for me in the past. So I'm going to do a book tag as well, and it's a book tag of a type that a number of you have asked me to do, tea-related book tags. And it turns out, after a search, that there are quite a few of them. So I picked just one, but I could do more, and I'll be happy to do that. I'll find a bunch more. Uh, I picked the afternoon tea tag, which was created by Chelsea Bartlett. And I should preface any discussion of tea with the admission that I don't drink it in any kind of a conscious way. I go to a little hole in the wall Chinese food restaurant every week, and the old woman who owns the place will, when she brings out my food, brings out a pot of tea as well, and I will drink that while I'm eating, but I pay no more attention to it than I do to my food. I am entirely absorbed in the TLS or the London Review of Books, and I don't drink tea anywhere else. So I'm not one of these people that has a rack of his favorite types or anything, different teas for different moods. And half the food items on this list are as alien to me as if they came from the planet Betelgeuse. But I thought I'd give it a try, starting with number one, which is tea, a book you find comfort in. And the one that came to mind is James Clavell's 1975 book Shogun. But really, when it comes to comfort, it could be any of the great big uh, historical adventure history potboilers from the late 1970s and the early 1980s. That I've read dozens and dozens of them, and I love them all. Although Shogun, I think, is really, really good as an example. Uh, Question number two: scones. A big, delicious book, and it's a book I've mentioned on this channel before. I always like a chance to plug it again. It's a huge book. It's The Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, a gigantic story about two families navigating the intricacies of getting two of their younger members married off, and it's just all envelopingly wonderful from start to finish. What an amazing amount of work it must have taken to write. But I highly recommend it. If you see it and you're put off by the length, don't be. It's one of those really long books where you're going to wish that it were longer. Uh, Question number three: Clotted Cream. A book you didn't like at first but ended up loving. Now, on Chelsea's channel, I have never ended up liking Clotted Cream. The whole idea is revolting from beginning to end. I can't imagine warming to it. But in terms of a book that I didn't like at first but ended up loving, the one that came to mind was Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. Her historical fiction Victorian era romp that when I first read it, I thought, okay, well, most of the effects here are mechanical, and most of them aren't landing. Most of the things you're trying to do aren't working. But I've read it, I think, two times since that first time through, and I've liked it more each time. It's a perfect example of a quality of large fiction uh, that disturbs me a little. It intrigues me, which keeps me coming back, but it disturbs me too, which is the way that fiction will sort of shift around in the back of your mind after you've read it, in a way that history never does, at least for me. Um, so that would my estimation of that book has gone up the more I've read it and the more I've thought about it. Question number four: Finger Sandwiches. A book you like, but that's not quite satisfying. Uh, and it's a biggie. It's the Quran, specifically the Penguin Classic translation by N.J. Dawood, which I have read. N.J. Dawood has been rather obsessively revising his translation for decades, and I've read every single revision. Penguin keeps issuing the revisions. Uh, of course, I've never read the Quran in the original, and so I've only read it in this English translation, and I can tell I like a lot of it. A lot of it has a kind of incantatory grace that is really, really good to read. But I can tell while I'm reading it that I'm missing something. That it doesn't quite hit the same spot as the King James Bible, for instance, or the Cranmer Prayer Book. It doesn't. It is clearly um, the sweet spot of an alien place, a thing that I can almost feel it. It's two counties over, through the whole of the book. Uh, so I really enjoy it, but there's that one element that's missing. Uh, Question number 5, Jam, your favorite pair of characters. There are whole, of course, literature provides an endless number of them, and there's another one that shows up in this very same tag. But the one that I had in mind this time, there's an author named Barry Hughart. I don't think he's in print anymore. He might be dead. He was a fantasy author from 30 years ago. He did a book called Bridge of Birds and a bunch of others. And the two characters involved are Master Lee and Number 10 Ox. Master Lee is this wise old quasi detective man, and Number 10 Ox is his gigantic muscular young teenager assistant, and they solve problems and have adventures together. And the books are wonderful. They really are. If you have a used book store near you that has a good science fiction section, you might find Bridge of Birds, and if you do, you should. You give it a try. You'll really like it. Question number 6, Petite Fours. A favorite short book, novella, or short story. And since there are 3 categories here, and I love talking about books, I thought I would give an example from each one. The short book made me chuckle at first, because of course my idea of a short book is not most people's idea of a short book. But the one I have in mind might be a little bit of a surprise to some of you. It's by Dennis Johnson. It's Fiscadoro, his short novel Fiscadoro, which I enjoyed a lot more than I've enjoyed anything since. It by him. It is a good example in my mind. There are of course many examples, but it's a good example in my mind of a contention that I've often had, that that a lot of times the American book publishing industry places a burden on authors to keep writing books that isn't healthy for them. I'm not sure that Dennis Johnson had a really good book in him other than Fiscadoro. I know that opinion is in the majority. His later novels aren't more popular than Fiscadoro, but I highly recommend it. For a novella, I have something new. In fact, it might not even be out yet. It's called Sonata in K, by Karen Anway Lee. It's a tiny little thing about Kafka, a kind of modern day homunculus of Kafka, a doppelganger. I saw the premise and I thought, I've read things like this before. This isn't going to work. But I thought the book was wonderful, just marvelously successful. And you're over it. You're done with it in an hour or less. It's a tiny little thing. And in terms of short stories, I picked The Ballroom of Romance by William Trevor. It's an Irish short story, and it's incredibly grim and joyless, which might not seem to recommend it, but we go to fiction for all kinds of things, and I do recommend it. It's a whole world in one short story, which is what we want the best short stories to do. So that would be Fiscadoro, Sonata in K, and a Ballroom of Romance. And I'll try to remember to list all these things down below, so you don't have to crawl through the video every time. And then number 7 is Strawberries and Cream, a dynamic duo. And of course, the dynamic duo was coined to refer to Batman and Robin, but the duo I had in mind is like A Suitable Boy. It's another thing that I've mentioned on this channel many times, and I want to recommend it again in case there's some of you who haven't tried it. It's Jeeves and Wooster. It's Bertram Wilberforce Wooster, a moneyed fop with very little in the way of brains, and Jeeves, his all-knowing, all-competent gentleman's gentleman, his valet. And the totally inconsequential adventures that they get into in the novels by P.G. Wodehouse. I highly, highly recommend. If you have not read a Jeeves and Wooster novel, you are missing some of the finest champagne that the literary world has to offer. Let's see here. Number 8, your favorite teacup. A beautiful character, too pure for this world. I don't know about beautiful. And of course, when we talk about a character who's too pure for this world, we're talking about a failure as a character, right? In terms of a fictional creation. The thing that came to mind, the character that came to mind, is Jude from Hanya Yanagihara's A Little Life, who I thought the book was tremendously impressive, except for him. This character at the heart of the book struck me all the way through it as completely unreal. Just the one part of the book that was the author simply fantasizing, whereas the rest of the book struck me as brutally real and recognizable. Jude did not, so he came to mind, but not in a good way. Too pure for this world, but not in a good way, a distracting way. And that is it. That is the afternoon tea tag that I'm doing, not in the afternoon and with the pouring rain outside. But I can't complain about the rain, because this is the storm that was being very mean to the rest of the country. And by the time it's reached Boston, it's a gentle spring rain, so I'm not complaining. But all that's left is for me to tag people. I hope it's understood that when I do a tag, I want to tag every single person. But I can't, just I jot down names, but I could keep going and going. The names I jotted down this time are the Reading Squid, because I don't think I've ever tagged her before. Britt, Jeremy at Jer Sings and Reads, Jess at Garden Scriptorium. Just a long list of people, all of whom probably have a more fruitful relationship with tea than I do. For me, it's really perfunctory. But the tag was a lot of fun, and I think I will find some more tea tags and do them as well. And I'll see you soon, Book 2. Thank you.